Hi, this is Colin Thompson for Storyline Tips and Tricks. If you have made a few storyline projects, especially projects that feature a quiz, you probably have tried out the drag and drop question. It's a quick and easy way to create a sorting activity. Typically, it would look something like this. In this example, I drag the object to the correct response target, and I get a pop-up that tells me I made the correct choice. Looking behind the scenes, you have a form view here to select the objects that are able to be dragged and the targets designated to each of them. You can create a fairly complex sorting activity with this feature. But the ability to drag an object and make it interact is not limited to this quiz format. Today, I would like to share with you a trick that lets you use Storyline's drag and drop features in a unique way to create games and other interesting interactions in your projects. Here's a simple game I made for my daughter, who was 2 years old at the time. In this game, the apples drop off one by one from the tree, and you must drag the apple crate back and forth to catch them. In the upper left, there is a count of how many apples you managed to catch. As you can see, I can freely drag this object around the screen. When it intersects with a falling apple, the apple disappears into the crate and the count is tallied up. But how do you accomplish this in Storyline? It's simpler than you may think. Any object on your timeline will become user-draggable when you assign a drag trigger to it. When you create a new trigger, select Object Dragged Over for the When section. Then you select the object itself and an arbitrary target. The target can be any other object or a background image, as I have done here. To finish the trigger, we still need to pick an action that will happen when the trigger occurs. Since this trigger's only purpose is to make the object draggable, I don't actually want that action to do anything. This can be done in a few ways, but I like to create a variable that isn't tied to anything else in the project. In this case, I created a variable called CrateMover. Then, the triggered action I chose here sets the CrateMover variable to value 1 when the object is dragged. This doesn't actually do anything because that variable is not related to any other objects on the slide. But Storyline tracks it nevertheless. Again, its purpose is only to allow the user to freely drag the object around the slide. With this accomplished, the next step is to create the actual trigger for the interaction. In this case, I want to be able to catch the apples in the crate. This requires an intersect trigger. When the apples, in this case apple number 1, intersects with the crate, we add value to the apples caught variable. So, when the apple falls along its animation path, and I move the crate into that path, an intersection trigger occurs between those two objects, and the count of apples I have caught goes up. I have also used a trigger here that tells the next apple to start its falling animation after the last one is caught, or flies off the screen. Let's look at this setup in a less complex slide. Here we have our baseball glove, and a ball which has been set on a simple animation from the top of the screen to the bottom. The goal is to catch the ball. I have a drag trigger that sets an unused variable to 0 for the glove, which lets me move it around. The ball's animation starts when the timeline begins. The timeline then pauses and the ball disappears when the glove and the ball meet. Let's see it in action. A lot of classic games are based on a simple interaction like this one, where a user-controlled object triggers a result when it intersects with an animated object. Can you think of a way you might design an engaging user interaction with tricks like this? Let me know in the comments. Good luck!